Is 3 the magic number? What do I mean by that? With the emergence of 3 local unicorns, Carsome, AirAsia Digital, and Edotco, has Malaysia developed the recipe for unicorn making? We bring together key industry players to share their insights on the readiness of Malaysia's startup ecosystem to sire thoroughbreds that can compete with current industry leaders. So please welcome the speakers for today. We've got Gopi Ganesalingam, Chief Digital Industry Officer of MDEC, Rafiza Ghazali, Group CEO of Cradle Fund, Dhakshinamoorthy, the moderator for Founder Startup Malaysia. Welcome our speakers, and please put in your thoughts in the newsfeed or even your Q&As.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Wild Digital Asia Conference. Delighted to speak to Ms. Rafiza Ghazali, CEO of Cradle, and my friend, both are my friends, actually, Gopi Ganesalingam, Chief Digital Industry Officer of MDEC. And the topic today is, like the MC says, is about game-changing blueprint to catapult Malaysia to become the breeding ground for unicorns. Rafiza and Gopi, how are you this morning? I know I promise it's a coffee morning, right?
Great, thanks.
I'm good. Yes, I'm good, Dash, and I'm glad to be here at Wild Digital.
Yeah.
Great. So we will be, while we are discussing, keep your answers brief so that we can ask you more questions and we can dive deeper into some deeper insights. So what are unicorns? I mean, we are looking at breeding unicorns. We want to create unicorns for those of people who are not in the tech industry, who don't use the same lexicon as we use. What are unicorns? Gopi, you want to go first? Okay, Rafiza, go first.
Okay, it was term coined by venture capitalist Eileen Lee back in 2013. She's a founder of Cowboy Ventures, and what we refer as unicorn is a startup that is valued over $1 billion and it tends to be a technology startups.
Yeah. So a unicorn has to be valued at $1 billion, and 1 billion, and a technology startup. And some of the common features of unicorn, as far as I know, they have to be disruptive. They have to be some of the first. They are breaking new grounds as well as high on tech. And Malaysia is planning to do this, breed these kind of unicorns, and we have 3 right now. Right? How many unicorns do we have in Malaysia? I know there are 600 unicorns globally. China has 160. India has 16. UK has 19. Indonesia 5. Singapore 3. Philippines 1. How many do we have? And who are they? Gopi, you like to?
Yeah, sure. I just want to add on to the definition of unicorn. So it has to be privately held, though. Cannot be a public listed company. So that be privately held. And also a little cheeky because unicorn is actually a mythical animal, but the company unicorns are not mythical at all. They are real and they're growing, right? So to answer your question, how many unicorns? Yes, we have 3. We have Carsome, we have got Edotco, and recently AirAsia Digital as well. But I think the timing, the ecosystem is right for Malaysia. And I believe, and because I'm involved in the work of building the ecosystem, I can surely assure you that there'll be more unicorns popping up in the next couple of years. So yeah, so I think 3 is just not a magical number. It is definitely going to be more than 3, and we can talk deeper into it as we progress in this dialogue.
So Malaysia's My Digital Blueprint has its targets of creating number of startups and number of unicorns by 2030, 2025. Would you like to enlighten the audience on the numbers? Or what are the goals of the My Digital Blueprint?
Sure. Can I take that question first?
Yes, Gopi can go ahead.
Yeah. So I think that's very important. I think we are very lucky. We are very blessed to be here in Malaysia, where the government spends a lot of money, a lot of effort, a lot of resources in building out the ecosystem. If you really look around, the number of agencies, the support that we get, is unimaginable, right? And I think the My Digital Blueprint, and a lot of people, a lot of entrepreneurs, the industry believes that we're not working in silos. Actually, it's not true. I mean, if you just take Rafiza, myself, you take the ecosystem players, we're all friends. So it's just one phone call away, one WhatsApp away, we get things done. But what has happened is, I think the My Digital Blueprint has brought all of us together because it's a common national objective. And the national objective has got many things around it. It's got 5 unicorns, it's got 5,000 startups, it's got digitizing 875,000 MSMEs and SMEs. It's got a lot. It's a tall order, but I think because we have got what do you call pole position in some of the things that My Digital Blueprint aspires to do, I think we are in good shape to move forward.
So what are our targets actually, Rafiza? What are the target numbers that we are trying to achieve in terms of unicorns, and by when?
Yeah. So as opposed to what Gopi mentioned, right? So the target is 5,000 new startups by 2025, okay. And then 3 unicorns, homegrown or or bringing in by 2025, and 5 by 2030. But those targets, I would say, are not impossible. I think we are going there, and as mentioned by Gopi, right? The thing that I really like about this blueprint is like at least it brings everyone onto the same page. Everyone was doing digitalization, especially post-pandemic. Everyone was going towards it, but at least now we have a common goal. We know where we stand, and we really showcase the potential. One of the really driver of this digital blueprint is the fact that the adoption of internet usage, mobile usage, just surged during pandemic. So this is the right for us to take this opportunity, and because most of the startups tend to be digital and technology driven, and we see, and MDEC put a lot of effort in really promoting digitalization, especially at the SMEs, where they tend to be, in the past tends to be more manual and brick and mortar type of processes. But with a lot of the startups, so that's one of the things that we work, quite closely. How can the startups now support digitalization, especially in the SMEs? Yeah.
Right. You see, the unicorn and the concept of unicorn is exported from Silicon Valley, which basically has all the ecosystem in place, the funding ecosystem that's in place, the entire the intensity of the players, and all are in place. Whereas in what Alexander Lazarus calls in his book Out Innovate, right, how startups are growing outside Silicon Valley, where the ecosystem is not in place. Why is Malaysia pursuing this goal as unicorns as opposed to creating, profitable startups? Unicorns are growing at growth at all costs, eating up investor money. Why are we pursuing these kind of goals that is being exported by Silicon Valley?
Gopi, do you want to answer that first?
Yeah, sure. I think it's a very good question. Why are we pursuing unicorns? I think unicorns are important, not just because of the unicorn. Unicorn is a definition. But I think large companies are important in any ecosystem. If you look at unicorns, what the spillover effect is that of the job creation, the supply chain, the ecosystem a unicorn brings together. There are hundreds of companies that benefit from a unicorn. So I think if you look even at the Startup Genome Report, which talks about ecosystems worldwide, if you look at their report, it says that a unicorn in any ecosystem gives the GDP a 10 times growth. So it's a unicorn, but also big, large companies. So I think that's why we need to pursue the unicorn story, the unicorn agenda. And for us to pursue the unicorn agenda, the ecosystem has to be right. Now, I'd like to argue one point here. There are many ways of getting unicorns, right? You can either grow them homegrown, or you can import them. So Singapore takes the route to import them. If you look at Singapore's first unicorn, it's Grab. But when you read the report from Startup Genome, they to grab as a Malaysian unicorn. Why? Because it was born here. It had problems that they were able to resolve in Malaysia. Now, them going to Singapore is another story, and that needs to be addressed separately. So I think Malaysia is right for more unicorns to come out. And I think just looking around, Cradle, MDEC, Magic, the MOSTI agencies, we're all working hand in hand to create that ecosystem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If I can add to what Gopi mentioned, and we saw that, especially during the pandemic, right? The ones that are actually making our life a little bit more bearable during that time are the startups, the large startups, Grab, Food Panda, Lala Move, all this logistics, which without those, a lot of people will be jobless. That's number one. And definitely contribution to the GDP as well. We have, we monitor our startups' contribution to the GDP. And if you look at a lot of other developed countries, they are, targeting a larger portion of the GDP contributions will come from technology startups. So it is important for us to breed unicorn because it gives us a bit of a success story. I mean, remember the time when Carsome became the first Malaysian unicorn? We were all celebrating, we were all very happy, and I know it was going viral and everyone congratulating each other. It just gives the rest of the startups a sense, look, we can be a unicorn. And I think there's a lot of hope. It's just a feeling of, okay, we can do it. Malaysia, we can build unicorns. So I think it's very important here.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. It's like sending 5 men to the moon, and and we say, why do we send people to the moon? A small group of people, but then it actually airlifts the entire science, technology, and space research ecosystem, right? So getting a few unicorns up would definitely have a great.
So we can safely say that. We can safely say that's our moonshot.
Yes,
that's right. It will definitely, airlift the ecosystem and get more startups to aspire, more young people to aspire to become great entrepreneurs. But when we look at breeding startups, looking at breeding unicorns, and not even unicorns, multi-million-dollar companies, right? They all hinge on 2 huge dimensions. One is the economic dimension. One is the the ecosystem intensity. When we look at the economic dimension, is the presence of governance, presence of law and order, presence of various infrastructure that is needed, the funding. When you look at the ecosystem axis, then it has to be, the entire ecosystem has to be cohesive and well connected, where there are no, what we call as institutional voids inside them. So do you think Malaysia has all the elements that are ready and prepared for us to aspire to be ecosystem, or is this going to be another thing that we are going to dream on and on and on, and trying to catch and keep discussing it and keep chasing? Tell us what are both your thoughts. Both of you are ecosystem players, but not playing in the ecosystem, and you love tough questions anyway. And I'm just getting started.
Okay, maybe if I can start that, right? Okay. Even though I'm considered the new kid on the block in the startup ecosystem, but it's been something that I have been watching from the side, for the last 10 years or so. And what I saw the last 2-3 years, and as what Gopi mentioned earlier, when I first joined Cradle, right? And then suddenly I'm not just joining Cradle, I'm joining the agency ecosystem, whether it's within MOSTI and together with MDEC. And I think, and this is the feedback that I get, I think for the first time, we see all these agencies talking to each other, working very closely, and see, okay, what else can be done. So that's number one. We need to get ourselves together, making our resources a little bit more coordinated, because now everyone wants to go into this startup scene. That's number one. We have funds, government made a lot of effort in making sure that, the ecosystem is well funded. Last year, they, announced Penjana Capital. So, and we are also trying, and I know MDEC and altogether other agency, we are trying to really promote, our startups going abroad or outside VCs coming in. And as I mentioned earlier, with the My Digital Blueprint, with all the infrastructure, we are working towards, oiling the infrastructure, the ecosystem and everything. I think we are really poised to really, catapult the ecosystem and building more, not just unicorns, but, really resilient, global, investable, quality startups, because we have the talent, we have the people, we have what it takes. All the, you said the secret recipe, to build this, to really build this ecosystem. So it's just whether or not we have the heart and, the soul and the faith to do all this, to execute all this. Yeah.
So some of the startups that I've spoken to in preparation for the session, as well as during the pandemic, tell me that the talent is quite scarce. It's very expensive, and some of them can't even afford talent, right? And you are telling me that we already have the talent and we are poised. So tell what are the share with us about My Digital Blueprint. What are the key steps the government is taking to improve further, or accelerate further what's already there, to enable us to actually minimize any risk or increase the probability of breeding startups? And why blueprint?
Okay.
Why another blueprint?
All right. If I can just, address the point that you mentioned about talent, right? Okay, we have the talent, but their talent may not necessarily be in Malaysia. A lot of our talent are actually, move elsewhere. We have a lot of talent in Indonesia. We have a lot of our Malaysian talents.
Sure. In Singapore.
In Singapore.
Yeah.
And yes. Okay, the issue is that people always say that, Singapore pays them better, right? But I've seen, I've spoken to a number of people who approach me on LinkedIn. How can they, even though they may be residing in Singapore or Indonesia, right? How can they support? How can they work? How can they, could I coach Malaysian talents? Because now everything is digital. You don't have to be physically in Malaysia to be a part of Malaysian startups.
Right.
So it's so to me, they are talent. Whether or not they're residing in Malaysia, it's another question. We have a lot of talent in Australia, and I know some of them have some sort of connection to the Malaysian startup. So I think we should, you're right, probably scarce, but I think it's something that we're trying to encourage and see some of these scientists. Even mostly is now we're trying to search for Malaysian scientists elsewhere, especially those in the we have a capability of vaccine, to see how they can contribute and work with the Malaysian government.
I can. Yes, I was wondering why, Gopi, you were maintaining an elegant silence.
It's very impressive to always listen to Rafiza speaking.
Rafiza, absolutely.
I want to weigh in on a few things that you brought up and what Rafiza said. I would like to echo what Rafiza said. I think the blueprint is very important to bring us together. I think a lot of our agencies have been working very hard. And I think what's different is, as Malaysians, we have a lot of passion and for the nation. So a lot of us who are doing ecosystem build are doing it out of passion. That's one. Two, I've always said, I joined MDEC in 2015. I've always noted the fact that Malaysia has got lots of talent, whether it's entrepreneurial talent or whether it is talent that supports the entrepreneurs. Now, we look at entrepreneurial talent, right? Malaysia is a small country, but if you just take one sector like the BFSI, banking financial institutions sector, if you go out into ASEAN, you go even beyond ASEAN, a lot of the major players that supports the banks are Malaysian companies. Now, that is one. Then if you go into, you mentioned Singapore, if you go to Singapore, they got very good talent. You put them all in a room and ask them where they're from Malaysia. So our fact is, the fact of the matter is, we produce good talent. We don't retain them very well. So we also don't retain our entrepreneurs very well. So coming back to the blueprint, and that is exactly what it is trying to address. Rafiza and I know that we have got major breakthrough in terms of intervention for these companies now. It's loosely working out, but we have the ears and the eyes and the commitment from the powers that may be to make sure that we retain these companies here in Malaysia. So those are the unicorns or potential unicorns that come up. Secondly, talking about talent. Talent is, yeah, and Rafiza brought home a good point. The world has changed. The COVID-19 has changed the world. Everyone's gone onto a digital platform. So you can get talent from anywhere. The best talent, if you can afford it, you can get through platforms. Secondly, we are also talking to our game company, the bigger, larger companies. It's about salaries, right? I think we are trapped in a middle income sort of a situation. But some of these companies are beginning to pay a lot more for fresh graduates. So we find that the good candidates are now not leaving the country. They're beginning to stay back. We find that the entrepreneurs who can do better in elsewhere are not leaving the country. They are staying put because of the intervention of the ecosystem. So I like to bring back the focus onto two problem statements. One is the fact that we lack funding. Two is the fact that we couldn't retain talent. I think both are being addressed. I think Penjana Capital is a game changer. It has put Malaysia back on the map. It has produced a unicorn, Carsome. It has brought in a unicorn, Zendit, from overseas. So this is a game changer, and we need game changers like this. And I think the My Digital Blueprint is that glue that brings us all together.
So thank you, Gopi, for diving deep on the point. So I'd like to double click about the My Digital Blueprint that is bringing all of you together. What are some of the John Doerr, the senior partner of Kleiner Perkins, a well-known venture capitalist, says you got to have very, very specific measurables. He calls them OKRs, objective key results, right? So what are the specific key measurable steps that are taken by both your organizations, Cradle and MDEC, towards making Malaysia unicorn birth friendly, the birthing of unicorns to be friendly, and creation of the 5,000 startups that are friendly? What is something that the listeners here in the early stage venturers or entrepreneurs can put between their teeth when they go out of here? What are the 3 or 4 things that you think that you talked about passion, you talked about the existence of talent, you talked about coming together of the ecosystem and the players in the agencies, but what are the key measurable stuff that we can point
I
to?
Rafiza,
please, either of you take it. Yeah.
Sorry,
I think that's measurements everything, right? Otherwise, it's all talk. I think the measurements are very clear. Creating 5,000 startups, new startups, that's a measurement, right? A new startup doesn't mean you just open a company and that's it. No, company has to be working. It has to have a commercial model. The second would be, I would think, it's valuation, and that's where the unicorn story comes in. Everything is about valuation. Valuation is real, right? Because people are putting money, people are betting on you. So that's the second measurement. Third measurement, like every other country, Malaysia, we've got almost 1 million SMEs and MSMEs supporting the GDP, supporting the economy. Now, how many of them can be migrated over to a digital platform? How many of them can be a digital company? That's the third measurement. That I think My Digital says 875,000. So these are solid measurements, right? And then how about making Malaysia investor confidence ready? So there is 70 billion ringgit investment number that we're looking at, that is digital investments coming into the country. So these are real numbers, report cards that folks in the ecosystem like Rafiza and I need to work on and ensure that we are in line with the report card that My Digital is trying to produce.
Okay, so from our standpoint, as you know, Cradle provide grants, right? So in the past, we have been measuring these three metrics very, very closely for each of our grants. The first one is the job creation, and the second one is the further funding. And as what Gopi mentioned, it's not just about creating one syndrome Berhad, technology, and then after that, they don't exist after that. What's important for us is when we assess our, potential grant applicants is that how the technology later, with the help of our grant, are able to attract further funding. That's very important, because the minute our recipients attract further funding, it validates, their success. And I'm happy to say that, for all the grant recipients that we have provided since 2003, the ones, of course, from 2003 up to 2005, we tend to give them to individuals. So we don't measure those that we provided individuals. But the minute we start providing to only Syndram Berhad incorporated companies, almost 8 out of 10 are still around. So that shows the robustness of the startups that we fund. So job creation, further funding, so those are our KPI, and it's not just up to the point where they complete our grant. We have a monitoring of 24 months. So even during that time, so we monitor and we measure those KPI, and those KPI are given to our MOF, and hence why we're still around, because we've been meeting those KPIs. The third one is a contribution to the GDP. I'll just give you a little bit of our past records, right? Our job multiplier for every grant recipient is minimum of 7.36 times, and that's excluding gig economy. Okay. And we also excluded Grab because Grab is a huge outlier, Yeah, right. So that is for the number of jobs creation. One startup, for every one startup is 7 jobs created. For our contribution to the GDP, right? Again, we took out Grab because otherwise it would be like 5 billion. So for every ringgit grant that we provide, the multiplier is 3.35. So for every 500,000, we get a GDP contribution of 1.5 million. So that's why. So those are our measurement. Now, in order to meet these 5,000 startups, now Cradle has been one of the few agencies that are in this startup ecosystem, right? A government agency. Yeah. So we've been around since 2003. And I think the latest reports, there's a number of reports of the number of total startups in Malaysia. It's about, Gopi, maybe you have another number, but I think it's roughly between 3,005 to 4,000 startups that we have in Malaysia at the moment, based on some reports. Now, how do we create 5,000 startups for the next 4 years, right? It's 3,700 for the last 17 years. And then we've got 5,000 startups to create for the next 4 years. So, and because of that, we have to do another game changing. And this is something that, I have been, discussing very, and MDEC is a strong supporter of Cradle in this, is that Cradle, on behalf of the government, is building what we call it, the My Startup platform. And this was also announced during the recent budget. And we have to do it digitally. We can't do like how we have been doing for the last 15 years. So what's going to happen is that, one of the, problem statement that a lot of the startups in Malaysia said that, when they want to create, and it's also a problem statement that I faced 5 years ago when I was, toying with the idea of building a startup, is that information is everywhere. And I have to search through 7 different websites to have a glimpse, the 10% glimpse on how to build a startup. In the end, I just gave up. So I just went to SG Enterprise, Startup SG, and I also look at startup.org.uk, where they have one platform, anything you want to know about startups, and so that's, after talking to different agency, and then we said that, look, we need to do this, so that everyone who wants to know about startup, everything is there. And it's a collaborative platform, and we are trying our best to address, to allow for the founders to concentrate, to spend 70% of their time building their business or building their technology, rather than searching for, okay, who's the next IP lawyer. So we're going to have everything in there. Support, mentors, coach, startups that wants to issue out their job listings, they are looking for coders, software engineers, they can put it in there. Investors as well, because a lot of the people that I speak to, a lot of the corporates, they don't know about Malaysian startups, because not everyone subscribes to PitchBook or Crunchbase, So we want to showcase all the Malaysian startups in there, all the contents, the 101 PitchBook, the 101, venture capital, everything resources that, we're just going to put it on web platform, so that, they would have to search through 20 different sites. Yeah.
Thank you, Rafiza. That's great. So you're building a portal. Sure. Gopi, tell us about what MDEC is doing.
This is a fine example and how the My Digital Blueprint pulls us together. So Rafiza, Cradle, every company I look at, Cradle's got a hand in it. And I think Cradle's done really well for the ecosystem. But our go-to-market is very similar to what Rafiza just said. It's about touching the startups. So MDEC looks at post-commercial. The company has to be commercial in nature, right? Not in ideation stage. So we have got many ways of how we touch these startups. We've got a 5,000 startup KPI to meet, and we're all doing it together. So the way MDEC is doing it is we are touching them through our digital hubs. A digital hub is a co-working space that has got elements of talent, entrepreneurship, money, environment, technology partners, and we've got 22 of these hubs all over, and we're building more. And so the way MDEC is going to touch and working, and we work very closely with Cradle as well, is we will have at the end of next year, 2022, we hope to have at least 1,000 tech startups that we are account managing. That means we know them very intimately. We know exactly where they're going. If they need to fundraise, MDEC has got the funding initiatives in place. If they have to have a mentor, we have a mentor plus. So I think what Rafiza has mentioned is exactly in line with what we are also doing. And hence, we need to work together. How do you get market access? Market access is a huge problem for all of us. Yeah. Globally, we have a market access team that's connected to 12 ecosystems, and that's how we build capacities. All these big, large companies that you're seeing today, 5 years ago, they didn't exist. But today, their capacity has been built by contracts that they obtained overseas through market access. How do you do local market access? So we've got the MIX program, the Corporate Innovation Program, which Rafiza and I spoke in 2015. We already saw that there was, right? When you signed up, we said, look, this is what we need. And we launched that 2 years ago. And this year, in May, we really got it moving. We got 100 corporates in there. Okay. We funded more than 1,000 companies. So very much in line.
So Gopi and Rafiza, we have 2 minutes left now, and I think we are just getting warmed up, and the time is time is running, and I've got questions coming in. I really don't have the time to ask, but I'm going to ask one question, and maybe we can take those questions offline. But I'd like a rapid fire answer, and then we'll summarize and we exit. Yeah, how are you planning to work with local, with the private players, all the accelerators and the incubators and people who are working, who are also part of the ecosystem? How is you're planning to work, come together, build partnerships to create this ecosystem of unicorn breeders?
I can go first. We're already working with the private accelerators. Okay. We've got 21 accelerators. We run hackathons with them. We do fundraising with them. We do grindstone programs with them. Storytelling, something we lack in Malaysia as a country. Storytelling. and we can see results. Over to you, Rafiza.
Yeah. So with us, we what we're looking at for the next. So we hope to launch this platform before the end of November. That's our target. But that's just what I call it the minimum viable product. And then what we're gonna do, we're gonna be approaching all the private accelerators, incubators, or all the agency, all the ecosystem players, to get them on board, because one of the things that we want to do is we want to promote them. We want to make them available to everyone so that everyone can see on this platform. So yeah, stay tuned, and we will be contacted. we will be contacting you, everyone over the next 3 to 6 months. Yeah.
Well done.
Sure. Any final words, Gopi?
No, I think
on breeding unicorns.
Yeah, so I think Malaysia is right. I think MDEC has pole position here again, because we've been account managing some of these companies that have grown into what they are today. I think, again, I would say Penjana Capital is a game changer. We want to see more foreign investors coming in, looking into our companies. And I think the big problem statement that I would like to put out there again is storytelling. I think as a country, we need to tell our stories better. We need to tell our stories sweeter. We need to tell our stories bigger.
Yeah, that's on Gopi's side. I totally agree with him, and it's something that we're going to be working very closely with. Now, on another hand, right? If you notice lately, there's been a lot of interest. If you see our budget and our recent belanja,
we have a clock blinking, Rafiza. Keep it brief.
Okay. All right. Okay. But, government is very, very supportive in building more quality unicorns and breeding unicorns. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Gopi and Rafiza. It's a pleasure. I think I can never get enough of both of you. And also the topic, Paul Romer once said that economic growth does not come from more cooking, but from better recipes. Malaysians, we wait with bated breath to see whether the government agencies have better recipes to create unicorns. And I think from what you have just shared, you have some very promising ingredients, and most of us feel that we are heading in the right direction. Thank you so much. Thank you so much to Wild Digital for giving me the opportunity to moderate both of you, the great stalwarts of the ecosystem. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye.